What if I told you that choosing the rest is one of the most radical things you can do? In a world that's predicated off of you always having to work to prove your self-worth, you being able to rest is literally telling the system, I don't give a damn about how you want to define my value and productivity in terms of me being valuable or not being valuable. I'm finna put myself, I'm finna rest. You know, as Black people in the Western world, we've always had a crazy relationship to time. Our bodies were seen as sites of productivity, and you usually measure productivity based in time. When we talk about captivity is usually measured in time. When we even talk about, value is usually measured in how productive you can be in time. With that being said, Black people have always had our worth and our sense of self tied up into how time can become a matrix and how Black folks can be stuck in time. Whether we are talking about unjust time or whether we're talking about uncertain times, or we're talking about past times or future times. I think a lot of times Black people in college, I learned that the idea of being ontologically frozen. Ontology just being a fancy word for being and how your being can be frozen, right? I think when we talk about rest, it's always important for us to think about the unique ways that all communities have a relationship to resting. In this video, we're talking about Black folks and how us being able to rest has always been a disruption and defiance to the system that we have, because we always already supposed to be exhausted from working. If you don't work, you don't eat. As a matter of fact, I believe that the concept of work ethic was uniquely created by capitalists and slave masters to try to dictate and really play people, finesse them into working hard. I ain't never heard us use the concept of work ethic in relationship to a colonizer, a slave master. You know what I'm saying? I ain't never heard us talk about that. I ain't never heard us talk about work. Zang. You about to make me upset? Go to the bed. Kids, I'm trying to set time for them to rest, and they fighting it. Shout out to my parents in the comment section, man. These kids, they fighting it. They wake up in the morning with a bad attitude. Don't want to wake up because you went to bed later than daddy told you to. Go to sleep. You can hear my voice right now because you should be asleep. You should be asleep. You shouldn't even be able to hear daddy right now. And I waited to start recording this video before I messed up my train of thought. Plantation politics is how we become lost in the sauce of productivity, where we start to only view people in our community and view people in our household based off of how productive they can be. And that's how much we're going to pay attention to them. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people will count you out until you counting up. And I feel like that idea comes from white supremacy and capitalism that says that people only have value unless they can produce. Even though there are certain people that's always stuck on consumption, we always going to try to police Black people on having a work ethic and being able to say you lazy. You know what I'm saying? Ever since we stopped working for free, they've been calling us lazy. And that's the reason why a lot of us have a bastardized relationship to resting. The hustle culture that we used to be in, where we said that the rich don't sleep. I sleep when I die. I sleep when I'm rich. Hey, rich people know how to exploit every single dollar they have to make it where they can sleep and make sure when they wake up in the morning, they can count all the dollars they've gotten from the exploitation. So you thinking that you're going to be able to work your way out of poverty, or you're going to be able to hustle your way out of white supremacy? That's designed for you to be exhausted and for you to really work yourself to death to a point where, hey, at least your partner can say you had work ethic. You had work ethic, though. That's crazy to think about. Do you hear the trust fund babies and the nepotism babies thinking about themselves in terms of rest and rest being bad? No. Do you hear them talking about work ethic? No. Papa always said that money talk and bullshit walk. And for you to be able to understand what's going on around you, you got to rest. You can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of nobody else. And that starts with being able to rest. In order for us to get in the way of the lobbyists, the bureaucracies, the interest groups, we got to be able to rest. And we got to understand that we got to rest dictated on our own time, not on what the system wants us to do, what the boss wants to do, what politicians want us to do. But I want to also push the envelope too. It's a lot of Black folks that talked about Project 2025, talked about the threat of Donald Trump. That's now in my mind, you're acting like a political immature child. You're throwing a hissy fit. You're throwing a temper tantrum because you believe your candidate didn't win. And because they didn't win, you got to show everybody. When I heard about Project 2025 and Donald Trump being a threat, it was also talking to us uniquely as Black people, whether we're talking about police immunity, whether we're talking about defunding public education, whether we're talking about, raising the price of, healthcare. All those things uniquely impact Black people. So when we're saying we're going to sit this one out, we're going to rest, and we're going to this, that, and the other, it's like, at what point in time do we say it's time to now get into action? You know what I'm saying? When is it now no longer time to rest? And I get that it's going to be different for everybody. I'm not trying to tell nobody when they should rest, when they should act. My question becomes, when do you do it? Is it after all of the Latinos and Afro-Latinos is immigrants saying deported? Is it when half of them deported? Is it when the state education is now teaching our children that we were better off enslaved because at that time we had the family intact? Is it going to be when, trans people have to, carry around their papers and prove their humanity? Is it going to, when does it come time, you feel me, for us to swing into action? Resting is important though. It's not resting for the sake of resting. It's resting to be able to get that clarity, get that strength. In this time that we think uniquely about rest, I ain't gonna lie, I don't have the answer, but I'm trying to figure out what is the balance between understanding what's going on in this world, but not being sucked up into the doom and gloom, while also being able to prepare and have self-care. Because you can't be so lost in the sauce of resting that you're ignorant to what's going on around the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't get so lost in self-care where you think that now you are justified in being an anti-activist. Mm-hmm. The concept of time is something that always I sit with. I sit with times that I wish I would have did something, I did something I didn't do. I sit with the times of what I want to do when the time happened. I'm literally stuck in time in a way that even when I want to rest, my therapist asked me, Mr. Lee, you always got these fleeting thoughts. How do you rest? And when you was talking, I had to really sit there and think like, damn, that's what my therapist was talking about. I don't really know how to rest.
How do you, or how can we promote rest as taking back power instead of while still holding space and being compassionate for people who want to be petty, because I get it, right? But at the same time, for folks who are like, I still want to be a human being by having this rest, and I still want to maintain my level of activism because I know I can make change. I feel like there's a balance between the two. How can we better promote what it truly means to rest and take back your power, and how that prepares and preps you to be able to be the type of activist, mover, and shaker that you essentially want to be?
Yeah. Audre Lorde and Dr. Fred Moten, when I was in college, they made me think a little bit more philosophically about resting and about how rest can be revolutionary and about how rest can actualize our humanity and about fugitivity. And about, Dr. Moten talks about fugitivity and how when we're in the states of fugitivity, us being able to break away from the structure, break away from the system is allowed for us to have that radical rest. And I think about when I was, what space I was in when I was learning these concepts, and it was policy debate. In policy debate, I learned these three things of how you are able to give an impact calculus or how you're able to give a comparative analysis. So me and you debating, and I'm trying to figure out how my impact matter more than yours. We teach our students to talk about magnitude. How big this gonna be? What's the impact of this? Probability. How likely is it to happen? Time span. Today, tomorrow, yesterday, 2 weeks from now. You might, example would be like this affirmative says they're going to solve world hunger. The negative said they're gonna solve for nuclear extinction. Nuclear extinction has a bigger magnitude, but this time frame is a little bit more. As a debater now, you have to try to characterize your argument as being more permanent, more threatening, more impactful using these three things: probability, impact, time span. To me, these portable skills of these magnitude, time frame, probability, I think that's how I'm gonna start talking about rest more. What is the time? What is the magnitude? What is the probability for X, Y, and Z to happen while you're resting? So your rest time is going to be 2 weeks. What is the probability of stuff happening while you're doing that? And to me, it's like we can have a conversation. And now we have these parameters that make it where there's so much things for us to unpack. Because now it's like, what's permanent for you ain't present for you. What's bigger to you ain't bigger to you. But now how do we mitigate and be in a community where you're more impacted by this thing than I am, but it's gonna come to me eventually? Do me as a black man say, nah, what I experienced through black masculinity matter the most, and that black femininity shit, leave it over there. We're gonna deprioritize, come right. It's like, how do we compromise, create a dialogue around care that doesn't create this hierarchy? And what we know in our community is that when I start learning about white supremacy and whiteness, it's like, hey, a world of white supremacy without white people. On one note, it's like, that's not how that happened. But on the other realm, it's like, hey, I've been in predominantly black spaces, or all black spaces, and somehow the white gaze, G-A-Z-E, gaze, has been, you feel me, introduced. Yes. Or we're now performing, you feel me, interacting with each other as if there are white people watching it. And so what I know about us is that we have to think about how much time we're gonna spend performing with each other or talking with each other through that lens of how white folks gonna view it. I like cussing, y'all can tell. I can use my ebonics, but what I know is as an educator that at OU, they taught me to not do these things. I didn't give a damn. But in doing this, to me, I felt liberated, you know? And when I recognized there was other black folks in the community, they used to get pissed off at me because I didn't want to play the game that way.